So what's exciting about these Communities Create projects is that we're wanting to really bring people together in this time where we're all apart.
Be part of a time capsule of life during the pandemic through creative outputs.
Just technical. Hello, everyone. I am Kadra Mensa. I'm the creative manager of the Transmedia Zone within the Creative Innovation Studio at FCAD at Ryerson University. So welcome to Communities Create. Hello to everyone in the live session, as well as everyone live streaming on Communities Create or CBC Arts. So a little bit of the goal of Community Creates is to support independent members of the creative community and to use creativity to unite Canadians and help people express how they're feeling. In this time of the pandemic and the uncertainty that kind of followed, when words sometimes aren't enough, we're providing micro grants to independent artists to lead these interactive sessions through a wonderful network of partners, including Taking It Global. This week, it's Visual Arts Week, and today's workshop is Storytelling Through Visual Art with Ovila Mailhot, presented in collaboration with Taking It Global. So just before we get started, here's some ground rules to ensure that everyone has the best experience possible. I want it to be fun for everyone. So number one, try the exercises yourself. You know, it's easy to kind of just, I don't know, watch something straight up, but it's way more fun. You're actually participating. So also, hi to everyone watching the live stream. We hope you'll participate too along with people inside the interactive session. Introduce yourself, play along, and ask questions using the Communities Create hashtag on Twitter, and we'll try to get as many people as possible. For those in the session, pin the Communities Create video. So you can go take a look at the 3 dots. You can just pin the video. Use the chat to comment and ask questions. Your microphone will be muted, and moderators will help unmute you when you want to ask a question. And all audio is recorded and archived. Your video will be controlled by you and viewable by other participants. It will not be recorded. Turn it on if you want others in the session to see you. So now I'd like to introduce Diana Breacher, who heads up our mental health task force. Diana, one of the reasons we're doing this is to give people a creative outlet for their emotions. Can you tell us a bit about your role here?
Sure, thank you, and welcome everyone. My role is really to provide some emotional support if, for whatever reason, you feel triggered during any of these exercises. And I'm here with 2 PhD students from the psychology department at Ryerson, Rachel and Amy, and we're going to be monitoring the chat. So if something comes up and you want to check in with us, we're available. And also, after the session is over and the recording stops, we're going to kind of hang around for a while to do a debrief. And that's another opportunity for us to talk if something comes up and you want to chat about it. And generally what happens is that that this is just such an engaging process that not too much is getting triggered, but every once in a while it does. And so we wanted to create that space for you. And in addition, we've also on the Communities Create website, we have some links to some mental health resources, at least in Canada. And that's another way for you to get support if you feel that you need it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Diana. And now I'd like to introduce our representative from Taking It Global, Jennifer Carrero.
Did you want me to go ahead?
Oh, go ahead. Yes, of course.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I am so happy to be here with you all today to introduce my artistic collaborator, someone who has offered such incredible creativity to our programs at Taking It Global over the past year, Ovila Mailhot. Now, I will say that last week was a very special moment for us because over the past year, Ovi's actually been working on images, artwork I'll show you a few of as part of this educational card deck. And the reason why I want to show this to you is because as I think about the question of how I'm feeling right now, I actually reflect on some of the animals, and in particular, and birds and creatures. And there's one in here, which is the hummingbird. And I remember my son recently telling me a fun fact about the hummingbird is that they can only go for about 20 minutes before they need their nectar. And they go really, really fast. And I had the opportunity to watch a hummingbird in my trip to Haida Gwaii a year ago. And it is something where when I was watching the hummingbird fly and dive and do all these beautiful things, a friend reflected that it reminded, watching the bird reminded them of me. So just in relation to flying and moving quickly and also anticipating things, that's just something I wanted to share, and the power of art and the power of connecting with animals. So this card deck, Ovi launched last week with members of Nlaka'pamux First Nation, Stolo First Nation, and Magdalena Kelly and her different community members of the Nlaka'pamux language group. This card deck supports the Nlaka'pamux language learning group, and also as part of our Connected North program. So we're offering different video sessions, and Ovi is one of our top content providers. He's delivered so many sessions pre-pandemic, but also during the pandemic as part of Connected North at home. So we're really lucky today to have him share a bit of his knowledge with us and his artistic expression and reflections on how he's feeling. And he's prepared something very special that I look forward to participating in as well. So if you join me in welcoming Ovi to share with us today. Over to you, Ovi.
Thanks, Jennifer. A swale with pelch tel squee. My name is Ovi, and first of all, I'd just like to thank Communities Create and Taking It Global for giving me the opportunity to share with you guys. And that's what I'm all about. I'm a graphic artist originally from Seabird Island, British Columbia, and I want to share the beauty of our culture through our art. And it's going to be something special. I have a design prepared that I'm going to walk you guys through. Feel free to follow along with a pencil and paper. That's all you're going to need. And through the design that we'll be doing, there's going to be a story behind it. And I'm going to talk about how I express myself as an artist, the Coast Salish elements that I use in expressing myself and how I'm feeling. There's certain things that inspire me, which fluctuate all the time. So sometimes you can see that in my work, what I'm trying to express. And this also is going to be interactive. So feel free to ask me questions. That's something I really enjoy, is the interaction with you guys. So feel free to ask me anything. And first of all, I'm going to basically just show you guys some of the work that I'm doing. I put together kind of a variety of my work to kind of show you guys an example. So I'm going to share my screen, and it's going to be in Photoshop because I'm a graphic artist, but I still use a pencil and paper for the rough sketches, but most of my work is in Photoshop. So we're going to go right into Photoshop, and you'll be seeing some of my more recent designs. And I have a few different ones here. And the first one shown is a river woman design. And when I created this, I was kind of feeling like I was missing home, because I'm from British Columbia, Seabird Island, by the Fraser River, but I'm currently residing in Lafayette, Indiana, in the Midwest. So I'm definitely a long way from home. So when I created this image here, it was basically just inspired from that wanting to be back home by the Fraser River. And I have some salmon here, which is an important part for our people. And definitely one of my favorite foods as well. Something I really love drawing is the Coast Salish salmon. And these elements that I use here in all my designs that you're going to be seeing are basically the crescent shapes, the trigons, extended crescents, and some circles. And these are traditional elements of the Coast Salish people that I use to express myself through my art. So this is one example, and then there's many ways that I've expressed myself, who I am, wanting to use these Coast Salish elements. And another example is my appreciation in pop culture. Growing up, I was really into comic books, video games, really big into hip hop and graffiti and stuff like that. And this is definitely a piece that shows that, expresses my appreciation. And growing up as a kid, reading so many Batman comics, Spider-Man comics. And I use these Coast Salish elements to give my take on my appreciation for that. So it's just that this is definitely something fun for the kids. The kids really enjoy this. And honestly, it's kind of how I caught my break as an artist, was playing around with comic book ideas and then getting noticed, a lot of people seeing that and really enjoying it. And that's kind of what launched my career as a graphic artist, honestly. And there are other times where I'm just expressing some humor and what's trending these days. And this, of course, you guys all know about the toilet paper and during the pandemic. So I kind of had a fun play on that, Raven stealing the toilet paper, as opposed to the old story, Raven stealing the sun. So I like to have fun with my designs when I'm expressing, when I'm just in that type of mood. My mood changes all the time. So I could be, it changes from one thing to another. There's another design that I did recently, and it just happens to be expressing, the happy vibes that I have for the summer, and a really appreciation for, I'm really into floral design lately, as you can tell by my shirt as well. So I just like creating things that make me happy. And it took me a long time to figure out that doing Coast Salish graphic art was the best way to express myself, because I went from a period of basically working full-time. Like, I worked full-time as an industrial painter for about 8 years, just paying the bills, making the money, but I had so much creative energy in me, I just wasn't venting it in a way that I should have. And I come from a really creative family as well. My mother was a writer. My father was a painter. My youngest sibling, Therese, she just recently wrote a New York Times bestseller called Heartberries. So come from a really creative background. And at that time, I couldn't find a way to express myself in a creative way. And it wasn't until I got laid off from being an industrial painter that I went on employment insurance for a year. And I took that time to try and find my way of expressing myself. So I started taking up culinary arts, self-teaching myself just on YouTube. And I experimented using traditional foods, playing around with different dishes. And I even bought myself a guitar, and I was expressing myself, trying to learn playing guitar and music appreciation. But it wasn't until I started drawing just on paper and pencil that I really felt comfortable, and I started to feel like this is probably something I'm supposed to do, because it just felt really good to me, and a really good way of expressing what I was thinking that day. And that's kind of how things started for me. Things escalated really fast for me, honestly, because I remember one of my first sketches. It was inspired by a Bruce Lee design, really big into Kung Fu films as well. So I did a Bruce Lee design, and he was wearing his yellow jumpsuit from Game of Death. And on his sleeves, I did some Coast Salish designs on his sleeves. And I thought it was an okay design. So I shared it on my social media. I was kind of nervous about it too, because I didn't consider myself an artist. So I shared that on my social media. And then I think in that same day, I got noticed by an apparel company. and they really loved that design. And then they asked me if I was interested in doing work with them, which totally blew my mind. I mean, I never considered myself as an artist, so I was just like shocked. So that's kind of how things got started for me. And then that's when I knew this was probably something I'm supposed to do. And then they asked me if I did vectoring, which is a part of graphic design. And I knew nothing about that, honestly. So still being on employment insurance for a year after getting laid off, I went straight to YouTube and I watched tutorial after tutorial about Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, doing a tutorial every day, sometimes two, until I started getting really good at it. And then I found, you know, things that made me happy, things that I grew up with, and, you know, working with the traditional style of Coast Salish art and putting that together, I felt that was the best way for me to express myself. So I just wanted to share that bit of a story with you guys. It's part of my, you know, backstory. I've been a graphic artist for about 6 years now. And I, you know, putting in that work, I just keep finding so much success with it. And it puts me in a position where I can inspire others, especially Indigenous youth, for example, to put in that work and be able to express yourself. Nothing but positive things are going to come back from that. So that's something that's really important to me. And taking a global connected north has put me in a position where I've been doing sessions with students around Canada, demonstrating Coast Salish art. And that's given me personal growth as an artist as well, something that I never thought would be something I'm into, but it's just becoming so natural for me. And it just makes me really happy to share with everyone. So that's some of my examples for work. And this is the design that we're going to be doing today. And this is a recent design that I did for a school in Mission, British Columbia, actually. And there's definitely a story behind this. I don't always put a story behind my work. Sometimes the visuals just speak for itself. But this one, I did put a lot of effort into putting a background story behind each of the elements in this design. And if you guys are ready, I'm going to walk you guys through this. We're going to do some drawing here. It's going to be really fun. I love this part of the sessions, the workshops that we do. And after each element that we draw, I'm going to kind of give you a background story behind. There's basically 4 elements here. There's the eagle, there's the sunset, and there's the paddles raised, and then there's a canoe here. So I have something touching on each of these aspects of the design, which is, yeah, storytelling. So let's get into it. I'm going to lower the opacity of this design, and then we're just going to start drawing. So if any of you have any questions after that long ramble I just did, feel free to ask me. I'm pretty sure I can see it up in the chat. Hopefully I can. I'm not too sure if I can see the chat now. Just give me a second. I'll turn that back on. Oh, now I see the chat. Someone said they grew up at the Fraser. That's awesome. Yeah, I love the Fraser River. So what we're going to do here, I always start with the eye. And like I said, the Coast Salish elements that I use are the trigon shapes, the circle shapes, and the crescent shapes. So we'll just do a circle for the eye. And I have that on the wrong layer. So just a regular circle shape. Normally, when I do my designs, I'm always doing a rough sketch first, and then I'll use Photoshop or Illustrator, the pen tool, to make my lines a lot more clear, like the finished design that you guys see. But it doesn't have to be perfect. All my rough sketches are, you know, they're rough. But when I'm done, everything gets refined in either Illustrator or Photoshop. And what I'm doing here is this trigon shape. And the trigon shape is a wedge shape used to insinuate movement throughout the design. It's basically placed to keep your eyes flowing with the design, because Coast Salish art is all about fluidity and motion. And when I was a kid and I was in school, they taught us art. It was a different style. It was from a different tribe. So it wasn't actually Coast Salish. And I remember when I first started drawing again, I was trying to remember that style, and it wasn't Coast Salish art, and I was practicing it, but it never felt comfortable to me, like something was totally off about it. And that's because it wasn't, you know, basically where my tribe was from. So that's why it didn't feel right to me. So it wasn't until I started learning more about Coast Salish art. It's all self-taught. And I went basically to books and other artists that I was connected with. They kind of pushed me in the right direction. And also the ancestral designs of our nation. Like I went from looking at images in books or kind of the archives of museums as well. You'll find some Coast Salish artifacts, ancestral designs. So I studied those until I felt I was getting a little bit better at doing our type of art. And it just felt like the perfect way for me to be expressing what I wanted to create. So I always do the eye first. I don't know why, but that's just my preference, doing the eye. Even when I look at other artists, I'll notice their eyes first, how they did their eyes. I don't know, maybe that's weird. And I also did the mouth. And the mouth basically is like an upside down Nike swoosh. And someone asked, are those moons on the canoe? No, it's the crescent shapes. Sometimes this can be depicted as an eye, but I didn't really mean anything for, like I didn't mean it to be like a moon. It could be depicted as a moon perhaps, as sort of a design, but it's not really what I intended. That's a good question. And whoever's in the chat, is anyone familiar with Coast Salish art? That's a crescent shape that I just did along the mouth. Oh, cool, someone is. That was really cool. Yeah, Coast Salish territory covers the lower mainland of British Columbia, along the Georgia Strait, into the state of Washington, and even Oregon. But there's different variations depending on the tribes as well. If you're really into Coast Salish art, you'll be able to tell some of the subtle differences. So I did two crescent shapes by the mouth, and rough drawing. It's not perfect, but we're just doing a rough sketch anyway. And then I'm going to start with the head. And just kind of bringing that line to the forehead. And then curve it towards the beak. And then from a claw, back to the mouth. The pen is a little bit wonky today. Maybe I didn't charge it enough. I do all my work on a drawing tablet that's connected to my PC. There's a lot of different apps, drawing apps that you can download as well. If you're into graphic art, there's a lot of free apps. I went with Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop because that's basically my job. So Adobe definitely has a more pricier tag to it as opposed to some of the free apps, but it definitely paid for itself with the amount of work that I've been doing. I do design work for a lot of Indigenous businesses, doing logo work, flyers, pamphlets, posters, and I do apparel designs for a few different companies now. I think by the end of this year, I'll be working with 4 different apparel companies. That's so mind-blowing to me. And it like my designs have reached overseas now in Europe and Japan, and that totally blows my mind. It's always crazy when I see on social media when people are wearing my designs. That definitely makes me happy. So there's a wing. It's just kind of a sharp point. And then we'll do a few more sharp points into the tail. Basically just doing the body of this eagle right now. Like I said, doesn't have to be perfect right now. I just want to basically kind of show you guys kind of the style that I do in the Coast Salish art. This will be one more wingtip. Just another short, sharp point, bringing it back to the body. Doing the sessions that I've did with Connected North and the children, they catch on so fast and they get to show me their work after they're done. And it always just, it's so crazy to see how good they are at following along. It just made me really happy when they shared their work, and they're so interactive as well. So I love doing these sessions, being able to share. And someone asked me a question before about sharing this work, sharing Coast Salish work with non-Indigenous people. And basically there's some stuff that we keep in our culture, like that isn't really shared, but the designs that I put out are something that I want to be accessible to everyone, to be able to share this, the beauty of this art with everyone. And this session isn't necessarily about Coast Salish art. It's more about how I found myself to become an artist, to find that way to vent my creativity, to express how I was feeling or what I was thinking, you know, day to day, because my inspiration comes from all over the place. Yeah, exactly, Rachel. It's definitely an issue that I've seen come up often. So there are definitely proper ways to handle it. And I think what I'm doing, you know, being able to share this work with everyone is okay. I think sharing the beauty of this work is, you know, is something that I'm compelled to do and meant to do. Like the Nlaka'pamux cards that we did with Taking It Global, that was a perfect opportunity to share the work with everyone. Not just that, but the language itself, because it's definitely a vital piece to keeping our culture intact is the language. And putting that together with Coast Salish art, it's like something I was meant to do. So I couldn't be more happy about how that turned out. I was just really proud of that project. Okay, so we did the body, and this was the claw right here, the claw outline. And then we're gonna fill the design with some of the Salish elements. So if you have any questions about Coast Salish art, does the Coast Salish art tend to use certain colors? Sometimes you'll see traditional red and black, but for me, I love colors. So I express that through my work. And sure, it's different than the traditional style of Coast Salish art, but I don't necessarily do traditional work. Like I believe art is always evolving, which is same as goes for our culture and the generation, of me wanting to express like Coast Salish art and Batman. That's, that's something totally different. And, I express myself with a lot of different color. So we have the body and do a nostril on the beak there. Just kind of a circle shape. But yeah, traditional Coast Salish, you'll probably see a lot of just white and black or red and black. Yeah, it's just being educated on it. And, with social media now, it gives me the perfect opportunity to share some of that knowledge with everyone. But yeah, there is native art that's, that gets appropriated or misused. But yeah, it's just being able to educate and inform people. So I did another crescent shape over the wing. And when we're done this eagle, I'll share some words about the eagle design that I had in mind here. And then an extended trigon shape going down the first wing on the shoulder. And then curve it in. I'm cleaning it up a little bit, but I'm not too concerned. Rough sketches, I'm definitely not too picky. If I was doing this, if I wanted a nice clean design on pencil and paper, I would probably be using some sort of stencil or ruler to make my lines nice and clean. Probably do a lot of erasing. And that's definitely how I started. Spending a lot of time working with pencil crayons. Oh my goodness. When I finished a design, I would, spend hours just filling in with pencil crayon. And thank goodness the company that reached out to me before mentioned about graphic work, because, that's when I started doing my research, and I got my first drawing tablet, and it came with a drawing program. And I would do my rough sketches, and then with a click of a button, I could fill a portion with color as opposed to spending hours coloring it in. So that's when I knew, all right, this is something I definitely want to get into. So yeah, I do apparel designs for a company called Salish Town, which is an Indigenous owned brand by women, actually, based in Washington. And they kind of gave me my first break. And I've been doing work with them for about 5 years now. Really kind of brought my name up as an artist, getting more of my work out there. So I was really happy to see that. So we did these kind of lawn trigon shapes. And that's on the tail here. This is a tail part. These two are the wings. Sometimes you'll see a lot more wings on an eagle design. What I like about design, I like minimalism. And I usually feel less is more. So I like my designs looking nice and clean. I do a lot of logo work too. And this is actually for a school logo. So I was really happy how this turned out. Just doing a couple of circle shapes by those trigon shapes. Couple more over the wings. And we're getting pretty close to getting this bird done. Eagle is something that I really enjoy drawing. You'll see me drawing a lot of eagles, a lot of wolves. And this is on the claw. It's on its feet. It's kind of a crescent shape that separates its claws right here, and a circle shape. if you're familiar with some of the Indigenous art in British Columbia, there's actually a distinct difference between Coast Salish art and form line art, which is something that you'll see a lot there. And the form line art was something that they taught us in elementary school as well. That's why when I came back to art, I was kind of confused about it. I was like, why were they teaching us this when, you know, we're Coast Salish people? I never thought I'd be an artist. And we're gonna do one more kind of crescent variation. It's almost like a moon, and it's gonna be a little bit bigger in the body of the bird. Yeah, being able to share this, what advice do you have for people who want to learn to draw or graphic design? Well, looking back, I probably would have wanted to go to school because honestly, I just kind of caught a break. I felt like really lucky. Like I could have been trying to hustle my work forever if I didn't catch a break. So going to school for there's lots of good design programs, I'm sure, courses that you could take for it, but I'm all self-taught. So if you're looking into getting into it without, going to school for it, well, I don't want to say you don't really have to do that, but it was all YouTube. It was all YouTube tutorials. Like every day I would do 1 or 2 tutorials, whether it was Photoshop or, just learning the tools in general. Like maybe I'll give an example of one of the tools that I use in this Photoshop. Like just one of these tools has a tutorial about it. And some of them took me a really long time to figure out, but YouTube was definitely my savior. And being able to show what I know now with youth and kids through these programs is so beneficial, because there was nothing like that when 6 years ago when I was first getting into it. I wasn't seeing Indigenous artists sharing their work, especially about graphic art. That's just not something that you would see. I have one in mind, but I could only think of one person. So we have our bird, we have our eagle design here. And I just want to kind of share what I wrote about this eagle. Like I said, I did a little bit of background behind each one of the elements that we're going to be doing. And after this eagle, I think everything else is going to move pretty quick. So what I want to say about the eagle, when one of the first things that came to mind when I was creating this design, and this is tied into a school as well. So I wanted the design to kind of be part of that school theme. So I wanted to try and tie a story towards that. And the eagle is one of my favorite representations used in our culture. To me, the eagle can represent strength, knowledge, and wisdom. A symbol I could easily see tied into students, teachers, and family. Some might see as a role model, eagle being the one creature capable of soaring closest to the creator above all. So when I created this design, I wanted to think of how it can tie into, students and teachers, basically. And yeah, that's honestly the first thing I could think of, because I've always seen the eagle as being, that one creature that you looked up to because it flies closest to the creator. So that's our eagle. I think what we're going to do next is the canoe. So pretty basic shape here. I'm going to start from the back end of the canoe, and it's kind of in line. I want to keep it in line with the eagle, but in the middle as well. So we have the canoe starting from the back end up to the front. And Coast Salish, you basically came across 2 different types of canoe. One was for transport, and the other was for, more calm waters, like on the river, the Fraser River back home. So this is probably a smaller canoe. kind of worked in perfectly because it's for a school and mission, which is very close to the Fraser River. So I wanted to keep that in mind when I created this design. It's a little rough. Just clean up the edges a little bit. Yeah, I wanted to basically showcase the Coast Salish work that I do. But this workshop, I wanted to be more about finding ways to express yourself, finding ways to show what has inspired you or how you're feeling. When I'm doing design work and I have so much on my table lately, it kind of drives me crazy when I can't do my own art. Like, sure, I'm doing designs, but it's for a job. But like that daisy design that I did, that wasn't a commission or anything. That's just kind of, I was feeling really happy that day and I wanted to, do a pretty design. And it just happened to be a daisy. So when I'm not doing my own art or venting that creative energy or how I'm feeling, I definitely don't feel centered. I'll definitely feel off if I'm not creating something that's a vision in my mind. And it just makes me feel so much better when that design is complete. Definitely makes me feel centered again. So there's the body of the canoe. And then a couple more crescent shapes. I love symmetrical designs. And if you were to follow me on Instagram, you'll see a lot of my designs are symmetrical. There's a lot of balance to it. Art has definitely become the balance in my life. So I like expressing that. I like a lot of clean designs, a lot of balance. You'll notice a lot of mirrored imagery in my work. And yeah, that just kind of reflects on the balance that I want. My Instagram handle, I'll put it in the chat. There's my Instagram. What distinguishes Coast Salish designs from other designs? Specific colors, shapes, content? Yeah, there is like specific shapes that are used in, let's say, form line designs. Coast Salish art is a lot more free flowing. And when it comes like to the eagle, there's a negative element and a positive element. And when like the ancestral designs were carved out, these negative elements, like the crescents and the body here was the positive element. In some, like in basically form line style, that's the reverse. The elements are switched compared to ours. And a lot of this is definitely more free flowing. When you look at kind of form line, there's more structure to it. The lines are connected with each other and they kind of build and form shapes. Coast Salish art is a lot more about movement and fluidity. I should have had some images to basically show the difference between the two, because there are distinct differences. But because of miseducation and just, not knowledge being shared, a lot of people get that confused. Even some artists that I know still kind of get that confused because, there's not a lot of teaching about stuff like this going on, which is why I feel really happy to be in a position to, show some of this stuff. Because when I was learning Coast Salish art, there wasn't like something like this did not exist. So here's the canoe. We did the canoe with the crescents and kind of a extended crescent shape here. And this is what I wrote about the canoe. And this ties into a school as well. And the canoe is a representation of our past and something that is still used to this day, representing how our culture and traditional ways remain intact. The canoe is used on our destination in a collective journey. And that ties in perfect with the school, I felt, because together, students and teachers are on a collective journey. So we have the eagle, we have the canoe, and now we're going to do a few paddles. A paddle's being raised from the canoe. And doing a few Coast Salish canoes here. My pen is a bit thicker than my original design, but we'll just work with it. And I've never did a canoe paddle like carved or painted, actually. That's definitely something I want to get into because I'm always looking at different ways to, get my art onto stuff. So carving is definitely something I want to learn more about. And I did a few panels here. I just kept it at 3. There's no meaning behind just 3 panels. I just wanted to keep the design looking a lot more clean and minimal. I don't like a lot of things going on in my design. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I like a lot of, just something that'll make your eyes go all over the place. But for the most part, I like to keep things nice and simple. And I was really proud of this design because I kept it as minimal as I could, but still had a story, still had something behind it, as minimal as it was. There's not a whole lot going on in this image, but it's still bold. And that's, what I wanted to, the direction I wanted to go with it. So we have some paddles here. I could have put some Salish elements into the paddles, but I felt just having on the canoe was, that was good enough to catch your eye. And for the paddles raised, a representation of a diverse group of individuals sharing a common goal on a journey together as teachers and students. Each individual has their own unique qualities, skill sets to paddle on the same path together. The skill sets, techniques, and knowledge of operating these paddles in life's journey come from our teachers and parents, mentoring and knowledge shared. And that's, to me, what I wanted to express in the paddles being raised. Just, a variety of individuals and background working together in a school on the same path together. So if you guys have been following along, we should have this almost complete. We just need the sunset in the background, and then we're there. I've really been liking the questions that you guys have. And like I said, feel free to ask me anything because I love that. I love interacting, sharing as much as I can with you guys. I never considered myself a teacher. I never thought I'd be in a position where I'm showing people how to do what I do. But, since I've been doing it with the children this year, it just feels like something I've meant to do. And it's been really rewarding for me as an artist to give back. And that's something that I really want to do, not just, make money. That's not what I'm about, but just being able to share what I know, inspire, especially Indigenous youth, that, you can come from a reservation and all the things that come with that lifestyle, but still find success as long as you're putting work into what you're doing or how you want to express yourself. So I've been really happy about this. Just cleaning this up a little bit. But yeah, there's our Coast Salish bird. We have an eagle with the sunset. and the canoe paddles raised in the canoe. And the sunset, I did write something behind that as well. The sunrise or sunset brings meaning of a new day and new journeys ahead, a combination shared by both students and teachers, with a teacher's role to show care, a healthy love while nurturing students' growth and continue new beginnings in life. So there was only 4 elements going on in this design, but I managed to bring it all together, which, you know, being able to express my thoughts and appreciation for students and teachers, being able to mentor. That's not something I had growing up. So being able to be in a position now where I eventually can mentor others, that just makes me happy and shows that I'm on the path I'm supposed to be, sharing what I know, sharing the beauty of Coast Salish art, and yeah, being able to show you guys how I express who I am and how I'm feeling. So I hope everyone has, you know, really enjoyed. Oh, I see Jennifer posting her her work. That looks awesome, Jennifer. Good job. So hopefully everyone else has enjoyed this, the story behind it, my story, because what I'm doing now is basically my story, and being able to share that is just so special to me. So I'm not too sure if who I turn it off to here, but
I think that it's back to me. Yes.
All right.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Ovi. I didn't say this at the start, but I'm also an artist myself. I'm an emerging artist, so hearing your journey is actually really motivating. And it's beautiful the way you kind of took the traditional Coast Salish art and used technology to kind of transform it through graphic design. That was just very inspiring. So hearing how you took the time to explore your creativity after being placed in a situation that was out of your control, which was kind of like, you know, being laid off. It was really inspiring to hear that that's kind of what you did. So I'm kind of wondering, what do you think is the role of creativity in times of crisis? Like, what would you say?
I think that fits perfectly with my background story, because I was in a situation where I didn't know what I was going to do next. I've been an industrial painter for 8 years, and all of a sudden it's gone. So it's like, what's my next step going to be? But I believe everything happens for a reason. So maybe there is a reason behind, you know, this pandemic happening, unfortunately, but you have to take the positive out of everything. And that's the kind of person that I am. So I figured, okay, I'm just going to be on employment insurance for a year. I want to do something, you know, worthwhile of my time. I felt it was just the time of my life where I had to kind of figure out what my next step was going to be. So when I was feeling frustrated, I would just kind of turn to, you know, learning about cooking. That's how I started. And then learning to play the guitar a bit. And then it wasn't until I found graphic art where I was like, well, this definitely seems to be my path now. It just feels right. So I think being in that situation, you just kind of have to think positive and just keep going no matter what. Because if you put in the work, nothing but a positive thing is going to come back from it. So whatever you put in is going to come back to you. So you just got to keep that positive mindset, whatever the crisis is, whatever you're going through, and something good eventually is going to come from that.
It's very beautiful. Thanks again for sharing. I believe Jennifer wants to share a short reflection.
A short closing. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And, you know, at the start, while I had the opportunity to introduce you, Ovi, with such excitement, I was sharing my experience in relating with the animals, and I just wanted to show you that in addition to my little drawing here, which was following you, the way that my brain works, I also did this doodle, and it's a bit of like a flight path, or also I wanted to just, in my closing, I've skipped it so quickly with excitement at the start, but just to acknowledge that I am here. I'm a settler here on in Toronto, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, including Mississaugas of the Credit, Haudenosaunee, and the traditional territory of many, many Indigenous nations. And I see the squirrel most often. So anyways, this could be representative of my mind, and just in the terms of the power of the art, just to thank Ryerson and to thank the initiative of Communities Create, because each day we our team commits to fostering spaces for creativity, with artists, and for us to all find the artists within us. So I just wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to collaborate today.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And I would like to thank everyone that has participated in the live stream, and those watching the video. And thanks again to you, Ovila Mailhot, as well as Jennifer of Taking It Global. So just closing out, I'll say next week's session will be mask making, presented by OCAD University. Check out the archives at communitiescreate.ca for sessions on photography, comedy, podcasting, and vocals, and this session will also be up. And thanks for joining us. Now I'd like to invite you all to stay for a well-being and mental health debrief with Diana. But if you have to go, that's totally fine. So bye to everyone that is leaving now, and we'll take a moment and then hand it over to Diana.